Welcome everyone to another quick class. Today's class is discussing dynamic seating and the topic of shear. My name is Michelle Lang. I'm an occupational therapist in the Denver, Colorado area. Thanks for joining us. So what is shear? Well, in wheelchair seating, shear occurs when the client's body tissues move in relation to the surfaces of the seating system itself. This can occur during transfers, so as the client is moving across the seating surfaces during a independent, assisted, or dependent transfer, we have shear forces. As the client perhaps moves within a static, non-moving seating system, their body will move in relation to the seating system, again causing shear. And then finally, if there's movement of the seating system or wheelchair, such as a recline, this can cause shear. Shear forces, we know, can lead to tissue deformation. There's an actual change in the cells, and this can be a key pathway to pressure injuries. This has been demonstrated in recent research. Specifically, shear is a displacement of tissue in accompaniment by friction, and this leads to tearing of tissue and a lack of blood flow in that tissue. Shear can also lead to a loss of client position. Now, dynamic seating provides movement within a wheelchair, typically at the hips, the legs, the neck. The primary area of concern in relation to shear in dynamic seating is at the hips. So a dynamic back works by opening the seat to back angle. You can see that in this little animation here. Now we know recline can lead to shear. So what about dynamic seating? Do we need to be concerned? Well, recline, we know, leads to shear forces as the pivot point typically is not close to the body's natural pivot point, and that's at the hip. This leads to a loss of alignment with the seating surfaces. If you look at this picture here, you can see a marker indicating alignment with the back on the left with a seated person. As they recline, the back moves more and more out of alignment with the client, again creating shear. Now, some power recline systems address this by raising the pivot point to better match that natural pivot point in combination with a back that may slide down during recline in order to reduce this loss of alignment. So with a dynamic back, there's two primary design features that can help reduce shear. First is that pivot point. So it's important that the pivot point is raised to match the natural pivot point. Here in this picture, we see that the pivot point of this dynamic rocker back interface is right at the top of the cushion. This happens to be a cushion that's a part of a molded seating system. Second is the degree of movement. Now, a recline can move posteriorly until the client is completely supine. That's quite a bit of movement. The dynamic rocker back, for instance, only moves about 10 to 15 degrees. By limiting the amount of change in the seat to back angle, we can reduce the amount of shear that occurs and keep the client in alignment with the contours of the back, even a molded back. Now, many of our clients extend within their seating system. That means they move within those static surfaces, again, creating shear forces. You can see that illustrated here. The person is no longer in alignment with the seating surfaces and other supports, such as lateral trunk supports, head supports, etc. By allowing the system to move with the client, we actually keep the client in contact with the seated surfaces, reducing shear for many clients who tend to extend within their seating system. We can also reduce loss of position, loss of alignment with the seating system. So what's the bottom line? Well, dynamic seating does not increase shear, but for some clients can actually reduce it if they are moving within a static seating system and creating shear forces typically. Dynamic seating can be a very important part of our plan to promote alignment with the support surfaces of the seating system and to also reduce shear. If you have any questions about this content, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk with you further. And I hope to see you on a future quick class.